Hey there, midlife mamas. Welcome to the Healthy Lifestyle Habits podcast just for midlife mamas. Because let's be real, this midlife chapter is no joke. Our bodies are different, our minds are different, our hormones are different, and we're trying to figure out who we are after momming for all these years. This empty nest phase is an eye-opener for sure. What worked for us in our younger years is no longer serving us because we have so much life experience, and that's okay. This is a supportive space guiding you through those powerful 1% shifts to help you grow. As we know, health is not a one-size-fits-all, so each week you will learn about different topics, taking away tools and tips to implement. This season, we're going to tackle some of the biggest midlife questions that y'all have had about wellness in this chapter. We're going to be chatting about what is holding us back, where do we find joy, how do we prioritize ourselves through self-care. We're always going to be talking about ingredients, daily toxins, food swaps, breath work, and mindset, just to name a few. There's nothing better than feeling empowered to create the best next chapter. Am I right? After each episode, I hope you feel more equipped and at ease to take a step or two that will allow you to thrive. Whether you're a newbie or an OG listener, I am so glad that you're here. Let's embrace this new chapter and thrive together. Are you ready for all the possibilities? If you said yes, say, I am ready. Hey y'all, welcome back to today's episode. We are going to be having an incredible conversation with Susan Robbins. She is an expert in epigenetics. She combines cutting-edge science with compassionate coaching to guide you on a journey of self-discovery and health transformation. After her battles with autoimmune, Lyme disease, stress from her career in law enforcement, and lots of other things, she was really trying to heal her health since her early years, 12 and up, and really just couldn't figure out why she couldn't do certain things or get to a certain goal or whatever it was. And as she went on her journey, she really started to uncover and discover things that started to flip that for her and really brought her into true transformation. She can help you harness the power of your genetic makeup to achieve peak quality of life and vibrant health. So this conversation, we're going to talk about epigenetics. We're going to talk about, there's 6 different kinds of humans. And so we're going to talk all about the DNA and our genetics and then what epigenetics are. So this is going to be a very enlightening conversation. If this is your first time hearing about any of this, it might be a lot for you to take in, but I promise you by the end, you are going to get some really amazing takeaways. I found it super fascinating to kind of start learning about these body types from a genetic makeup and why certain things don't work for certain people. I think it's very fascinating. So let's meet Susan and get into it. Hey, y'all. Welcome back to the show. I cannot tell you how I am so excited to have Susan on. We just were chatting for a little bit and literally it's like all my endorphins are like, this is going to be awesome. We are going to get into Susan's story, but, from the intro that I gave you guys, we're definitely dialing into DNA, genetics, epigenetics, what she has going on, what her journey has been like and how she got where she is today. And then we're going to be walking away today with probably some new information that we've never heard. And that's an amazing gift. But we're all going to also be walking away with a couple of tools and tips for how we can start to change and shift things within our mind. And I think that's where the key is for today is awareness and then some tools that we can start to begin to shift our thought process, because that's where things will start to go differently. So welcome to the show, Susan. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm so honored to have this conversation with you, learn from you, and get your message out to the world, because I think it's so important and so needed and very valuable.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here. And as you said, as we chatted, it's like we're both graduates of IIN and just a lot of things in common. And I think just the desire to help people be their most authentic selves and just achieve an amazing quality of life is what we're about. And
yes,
so excited
absolutely.
Genetics, which is my jam, and authenticity due to how you're created. So
I love it. So tell us a little bit about, because we all have a journey, right? We've all been, I don't know how old you are. I mean, I feel like we might be in the same realm of time, but growing up in the 70s, 80s, 90s with all the fads and all of the messaging that we were given, and at that time we didn't even know all the other possibilities, right? So kind of draw us into like what that journey was like until you had those aha moments.
Oh boy, this is going to be, well, I'll be 59 in October, so I have to figure out how to cut this down because it's been a long journey, but long story short, so I was the short, fat girl. Growing up, I was super active, super active. And as I found all this out about myself and my journey and how I'm created, all of it made sense to why I was how I was. But I was overweight, not obese or anything, but I was definitely an overweight kid. And that was back in the, early 70s, late 60s when, hey, Twiggy was out.
Right.
The opposite of Twiggy. I was built like a woman by the age of 12. And so I started dieting at the age of 12. And I remember it was the Cambridge diet, which, come on, people, it was a liquid diet. So 3 shakes a day. And you know what? I hardly lost anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the Scarsdale diet. And it was all of these, right? And I still remained the fat girl. And like I said, it was very athletic, and come to find out that that's exactly how it was created. So always moving and everything, but still like my body never changed, and always wanting to fit in. Now, as we learned in IIN, fitting out is ideal, but when you're young, you want to fit in. So, I played field hockey, I played softball, I was very active. I grew up on the Jersey Shore, so it's always on the beach and swimming, and just a very active lifestyle, but weight never changed. And then began drinking at a very early age after I lost my mother. So I was 14. And because I look like a woman, I could get into bars. So like, you talk about the things that I started doing to make like destruct my body. It was so destructive to my body at a young age. And of course that packed more weight on, right? Then go to college, you pack on the freshman 15, which was probably freshman 30. So my life was just set up to just keep getting worse health-wise, even though here I was always just, wanting to stay in shape and whatnot. So I ended up, when I was about 20, 22, I got married young, and that's when the low fat fad came out. Mm-hmm. You could eat a box of Teddy Grahams.
Oh, right.
Because they were fat free, right? So it says,
Snackwells was our thing. I mean, I was in college and it was Snackwells. It was like, oh my God, we can eat this whole thing and it's 0 grams of fat. I mean, never even thought like, maybe you should look at the ingredients. It was just like, this is awesome.
Yeah, it was just go low fat, cut everything else out, and that's what we did. And I actually became a fitness instructor at a gym. I was married to a Marine, so we were a military base, and so I ended up. I'm 5'1". Okay. I was 170 pounds, and so I dropped down to about 140. Well, it was about 127, I think, was my low point, and then of course, back on it comes again. And then there's another fad. So this was my whole life, was back on these fads, but yet I continued to exercise because it was a huge part of my life. That was my outlet. And the other thing that was also a big component of this, as you're talking about mindset, how we think about things, is, when I talk about what I do, you guys will all understand this, because there's health types that I work with. And so there was this part of me, this needing and wanting to belong so much, and never fitting in anywhere. I didn't feel like I fit physically, mentally, and I was just always very different. So this is also playing a part into here, that need to belong. And what I found out, in my 50s here, that my predominant hormones are adrenaline and testosterone. So I'm very direct, and I'm very in your face, and I'm very passionate, and I'm blah, blah, blah. I say the bull in the china shop. People can things so eloquently, and I'm like, I just lay it out there, and someone else will say the same thing, and I go, why do I sound like the bull in the china shop? So all my life I've heard, Susan, you're too much. You're too loud. You talk too much. You're too needy. And so I would just try to conform to what anybody else needed at that time. Was married 3 times. I've been divorced now for over 15 years, people. I figured it out. It was me and my picker combined. But all of these things, looking for all this that I wasn't finding in me because I didn't know to look in me. And so just looking for this outward to try to change my body, and nothing ever worked. So within my journey, I had dabbled in careers because I just never found anything that I really liked. And so I ended up, after 9/11 and losing my best friend to cancer a couple of weeks before, just totally transformed my life. And I said, I need to make a difference. There I go, wanting to fit in again, be a part of like a brotherhood or a sisterhood. So I go into law enforcement. So I entered the police academy in Aurora, Colorado at the age of 36 as the second oldest person there. And I loved it. And I thrived, and I loved the physical activity, like the physical training days were the bomb. Like that was why I was excited. So I dropped weight down there again, and I ended up, like everybody else was using these gads of amounts of weight, and I go down to like 123. From 120, I lost 5 pounds in a 6-month academy. But I was super fit, and I had the highest overall fitness score of the 38 people, men and women, in my class. Again, not knowing that this is how I'm created, like from movement, natural athlete. But I didn't know at the time I had celiac disease, and here I'm eating all of these things where my gut was just a mess, and they would make fun of me. And, being out running and going, oh my God, use the restroom. That was my life. Just didn't know any of this, and thinking, and I'm still on that, gotta stay low fat. And I can remember taking those Cozy Shack puddings that I would get at Costco, right? The rice puddings. Dessert at our lunches. So I go into law enforcement and I say, I'm a night person. I'm the night owl. I want graveyard shift. And I'll get into that as we talk about some stuff. But immediately I pack on the pounds. Back on again, because we're eating breakfast at Denny's at 3 and 4 in the morning. Here I'm wanting to fit in, so I'm gonna go do what everybody else does. And still in that career, I never fit in. I was still different, and I had some that I felt very bonded with, but I'm still trying to match myself to whatever environment I was in, personally and professionally. And so see where I'm just going to cut to. I moved to Montana, get married, third time, moved to Montana, 2 divorces as a cop. They said 95% divorce rate for female officers. It proved true. And moved to Montana, which beautiful area, but very difficult, again, to fit in if you're not there. So 15 years there, never felt I fit in. And here I'm working in law enforcement, and I'm working a 10-hour shift in the morning, and then I'm going and doing CrossFit endurance at 6:30 at night. So I'm exhausted, constantly exhausted. All of a sudden, everything starts changing for me. My body started changing in not good ways. I couldn't sleep. I was constantly fatigued. And unbeknownst to me, I had contracted Lyme disease to add on to all of this. And I found out I was celiac. And so I've got autoimmune, I've got Lyme disease, and everything just was compounding. And I was really like this ticking time bomb. It took 11 years to diagnose the Lyme. I got it twice. And I stayed up around the 120s, 130s. At one point, I went up to almost 140 pounds again, and still working out, like thinking, why is CrossFit lean everybody out? I'm getting fat again. Like all these things you think, and I go paleo, doing all of this stuff. Cut to the chase and moved back to Colorado, thinking I was going to come back and get back to my old crowd of friends. And it wasn't the same. No. So now I'm looking for that connection, which is huge to me, looking for the connection, and I'm still physically not right. And I'm health coaching now. I went into health coaching while I was still a police officer. By this time I had retired because it was so much. I was doing a lot of crimes against children. And so you add the stress into all of that, right? So I just got all of this compounded. My health I think I'm feeling okay, but still just not right. And so I moved back here and I'm coaching and I'm just doing the IIN coaching, your basic coaching, 12 session programs, 6 months usually. And I said, there's gotta be another level.
Mm-hmm.
My clients feel good, but no, who's feeling freaking amazing? I'm not feeling amazing. I'm doing all the things. I'm doing my strict paleo, and I'm doing strict paleo with all my people because that's the thing.
What you thought, right?
And so I went to the Paleo FX conference down in Austin, Texas in 2019, and I found DNA. It was a group called Appear on Zoe. And I said, this is the missing link. It made sense. And nobody was doing this. Why are we not doing this? This is really dialing somebody in according to how they're created. And what blew my mind was that we have control up to about 95% of what our DNA does. Mm-hmm. Our DNA does not control us, people. We have so much control. Every choice we make is affecting our DNA. Simple as that. So I start working with my own, and I was like, oh my God, this makes sense. I don't methylate. Yes, I have the MTHFR variants, but don't panic because we can work with them. Increase.
But knowing that, but for me, like knowing that, I don't know why everyone is not tested for that, because it really has significant negative impacts. And I didn't know until recently when we did like an extensive testing on her, and I was like, well, I'm going to get tested too then, because we're a lot alike. Mm-hmm. And yet I had it. So then I'm like, now I got to figure out what this is. So I did like a deep dive research, and you don't methylate. And when you're pregnant and you're having children, they give you folic acid. And let me tell you, I had, 4 miscarriages. And so when I started reading that it increases your chances, I'm like, holy crap. Like, why didn't anybody tell me that was even a thing, And yeah. And again, so now like with my kids, I'm like, okay, everything has to be methylated. So if you're taking a vitamin, like that's one thing we can do to make sure. But one of the things that just came to my, existence in the last couple of months is it's also in food, some processed food, right? Not the
most of your processed, you're enriched.
Right. So again, we don't eat a lot of that. So really, because as I read ingredients, like it wasn't something, but I don't know where I was. And I looked at something and I was like, I saw a vitamin, whatever, B6, well, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's in enriched food. So if somebody doesn't even know they have it and they're not, let's say, taking a supplement or a vitamin, but they're still eating garbage food that has that in it, you're being affected. So again, very disconnected as to why that test, in my mind, like why that test is not done normally, regularly with regular panels, at least when you're born or whatever, could be very helpful. It's a huge clue as to things you can do. One of the things I wanted to just say, because listening to your story, I think a lot of people can resonate with the trying everything to fit in, right? To feeling like you belong, to what can I do to be more like this? Or how do I get like that? Or how did they do it, but I can't? It's like all of these yo-yo thoughts and things that we have, growing up. Nobody tells us while we're actually physically growing up that we're all unique. We all have a unique makeup. We're all bio-individual. And so for me, like hearing your story of the journey, the up and the down and all the hills and the dips and all of that, to me, it was like God just kept having you repeat the same thing, which happens to all of us until we
learn the lesson.
Well, it's just like he keeps saying, okay, that's not working. That's not working. This is not going to work. Like you're being led to figure out what's going to work. But it's like, in order to get there, sometimes you got to do all of the crazy ups and downs and all arounds. But with that, every part of that story, you took something from. Absolutely. You learned something through it. So it's not for nothing. And I find like that fat-free, that was an era. It's, now we can look back and know like, what were we thinking? But then it was something we could learn that through nutrition. Okay. That wasn't a good example, but through nutrition, we can fuel our body and we can also not fuel our body. And so I think that little fat-free phase, and all of the quote unquote, paleo, keto, this, that, they do work for some people. They just don't work for all. And that's the part that really needs to come to fruition at this point in 2024. There is not one size that fits anybody. And restriction isn't a good thing because it just causes a lot of mind stuff. But also, if your DNA is one way and you have one body type, right? When we're going to talk about that, you might be somebody that's going to thrive on paleo, but you might not. And when you were saying like your gut was wrecked, what I have found for many, many people is that once you can delayer all of the things and get a stronger gut brain connection and all of those things, you might be able to have that dairy. You might be able to have that grain. That doesn't mean you go eat garbage dairy and garbage grains. There's all sides of things. There's healthier and not as healthy for you. And that's your choice. But you have to be educated to know what those choices are.
Absolutely.
So I want to dive into the genetic component when we can, but keep going with your story. But I want to hear about the different types because I want people to be educated that there are different types.
Yes. And it's not even about healing the gut to be able to have some foods. There's some people that, and we'll talk about this, that their bodies tend to do better with certain foods that other types just typically don't, just because of how they're formed in the womb. So it's the whole genetic stuff. There is just, I say it's all about genetics, not generics. When you hear a program say this is right for everybody, run. You can have up to a certain amount of a large percentage that just are not going to respond to that. And so that's where, when we're talking like precision health, is where it gets into. So I found the DNA, and that made huge changes for me, and the eye-opening things. Now, interesting where you said, get on the methylated vitamins and all. So, and this is why when I hear people, we're going to test 5 DNA SNPs for methylation that are going to tell you everything.
Right. Well, that's not true.
You know what's up? It isn't. The body is a very complex system, and we have to look at it as a complex system. So I do minimum 3 panels of DNA. We look at over 700,000 different SNPs and bring in the most impactful ones. So and I'll use me as an example here, and I've had several clients this come up with, it's not a common thing, but between the MTHFR, I went on all the methylated, major agitation. Sends me in the wrong direction. I have to use unmethylated, which there are some great formulas. And I have a couple others that they get super agitated. It could be the B12 specific. It could be methylated as a whole. I get very sensitive to too many methyl donors. So again, when we look at a whole panel, as opposed to just a onesie twosie test. So I just had a client she hasn't done the DNA, but we wanted to know that she wanted to know her MTHFR because we had some questions there. And so we did the test there, but I also did another one called COMT. We were able to find out that status, and that can be a huge game player with that as well. And so I just want to say that again, that we are
not a one size fits everybody.
Right. Like, it's not one size, even with supplements. And even my doctor was first, go ahead. I want you on all this folic acid or this folate, all this folate. And it just took me in the other direction. It was too much. It made me feel worse. So we have to do it right. Okay. Quick end to the story, do the DNA, bring that into clients, but I'm still a little bit off. And then 2020 happens, the lockdowns happen, and I was doing most of my stuff in person and networking and all that. And now there's no connection. And I'm single. I live alone. Connection stops. And here's the secondary connector person you're going like, oh my God. Now I have no connection. And trying to figure out how I'm going to find clients and everything. So everything just took this turn. And then I started having more issues health-wise. And so in October of 2020, I get approached to be a part of a group of 7 that were looking to put a program together for high-powered athletes. We were all coming from different disciplines, and we were going to use each other's things to guinea pig on to see about how to put the program together. And they said, you'll be DNA. And then they said, there's another group called PH360, and they have there's this online, and it's an app, and it's epigenetic based. I was like, oh, that's stupid. I'm far superior to DNA, right? And I find out this is actually how I'm created to be this. Yeah, right. I know everything. And so when it came time for me to have my first coaching session, I did the onboarding. I did it myself onto the platform. And my coach is Cam McDonald, Dr. Cam McDonald. He's the CEO and chief educator of this group. It's now Precision Health Alliance with the Shea app. And he said, so mate, how you doing? I said, I'm good. He said, so how are you feeling? And I said, well, I do CrossFit and I'm a little, I'm tired, not sleeping well, and holding on to extra pounds. Surprise, surprise, right? Even after the DNA. And he said, well, what time do you eat breakfast? And I said, well, I don't. I've been intermittent fasting for a year. It's what we're supposed to do. And he said, yeah, that's not your type. You're an activator. You're made for movement, and you have to feel that movement all day long. Stoke it in the morning. It's like stoking a fire. And I go, no, I'm good with eating twice a day. And he said, you're not. Are you going to use this or not? And I said, okay, I got called out of my BS. So I guess I will look at this. And I looked at it and I thought, my God, it's taking my cruciferous vegetables because I'm majorly hypothyroid, and it's recommending I hold off on that. But it's giving me this whole list of foods that I wouldn't have even considered because I was such a routine person. And so I started working with this platform. And we tweaked it a little bit more because I was on the cusp of 2 of the different health types.
Mm-hmm.
And we were working with my predominant, which is called an activator. But I'm on the cusp of what is also the connector. And he said, well, let's bring some of the connector in here and just tweak this a little bit more. Stop eating your sweet potato at night. Keep your, no starches, no sugars, even fruit after this time at night and all. And this platform was telling me when I should be eating. It's like 5 times a day. When I should be eating the exact foods I should be eating, when I should be training, the exact types of food, exact times of training. And here I was doing CrossFit endurance, not knowing that here I'm thinking all this time that I've been this night owl. I'm a morning person, which shocked the hell out of me. I was going, I was up until 1, 2 in the morning. So I was just living the complete opposite.
Yeah.
If you look at this wheel, this PH360 wheel of basically embryological creation, I'm over here and I'm living the life of someone completely opposite of me all my life, thinking I'm this night out, working night shift and all this craziness, always tired. And I went down to the smallest in a month, the smallest I have been since sixth. I remember being 109 pounds in 6th grade. I was humiliated on the scale. I went down to 111 pounds and I was blown away. And then I went and got a bod pod done, and I had lost some lean muscle, which is, given because I wanted to drop body fat specifically. And he said, the way your health type is, you're going to put that muscle back on. I went to CrossFit to give me an extra program to work with building some more lean muscle. And within 6 weeks, I'm up 3.5 pounds of lean muscle. And I go, all right. And my energy was through the roof. I'm now going to sleep at 10 o'clock, 10:30. I'm waking up normally at 6 o'clock, ready to go. My workouts, everything started to change. And I said, okay, do you guys have coaches, actual coaching program? And he said, yeah, we have over 1,000 coaches. There's the majority are in Australia and New Zealand where it's based. Really, nobody knows about this in the States. And I said, bring me on board. And there was a coaching course that started that next month. I came on, and I'm the fastest growing coach in PH360 history because I believe so much in it and have brought so many people on board. And then last year, I said I thought I was going to be the Susan Lucci of nominees. After 3 years, last year, I was the coach of the year.
Congratulations.
So it has been such a journey that it gets me so emotional because doing all of this not only changed my health, but my life, my business. I now can, and it helped me to see all this needing to connect and belong, just how I was created.
Mm-hmm.
Being, quote, too much and direct is how I was created. So I learned that part of me that's reactive due to so much testosterone,
mm-hmm.
that reactive part was great as a police officer, wasn't so great in relationships. So it allowed me to delve into that, to be authentic. And now I just tell people, look, don't First of all, I'm one that gets hangry. Don't hold me accountable for what I say. Don't take it personally. And also that I am just a very direct communicator, but it's all coming from here, my heart, not anything malicious. And that's what people, a friend that would say, what's wrong? Are you mad at me? Because I would give like 1 or 2 word answers during the day in a text where I think I'm giving them the benefit of getting back to them, but I'm in go mode all day long.
Yeah.
Where I used to do CrossFit at night, I needed to be coming down at night. So my sleep is 90% of the time is fantastic.
But those are the key things right there. What you were saying. I mean, sleep is vitally important. So if you're not sleeping during the correct time frames, right, you're doing yourself a disservice. You are. And, you can say whatever, you can say, well, this is just me. I'm just a night owl. You have to experiment. A lot of things in health and wellness are experimental because what works for one doesn't work necessarily for another. And your body is so wise, it's going to tell you. So if you're up till 1 a.m. and you're getting up at 6 and you are feeling great, you have high energy, you don't, have stomach, you're like your health is good, you feel good, you don't feel out of alignment, then that might be great for you. But I still challenge you, try to go to bed, back it up and get to that 10 to 6 and just see, or 10 to 5 and just see if anything changes, because no one's going to be able to say, Susan, if you sleep from this time to this time, you ultimately, even with the testing, you're ultimately going to be this type of person. You don't know that until you actually try it. You have to try certain things. And if somebody can't afford the test, because I'm sure, it's going to come up for people, well, I can't afford to get that testing. Maybe you can't, but what you can afford to do is experiment. That's free. Experimentation is free. If you're somebody that has been so dialed into fasting, it works for some people. It does not work for everybody. So if you've tried it and you have 0 results, or you feel worse, or and I will tell you, being in this midlife chapter, I've dabbled in a little bit of the intermittent fast, and I don't even like to call it intermittent fasting, because again, it's putting a label on something, but just stopping eating after dinner and then, eating in the morning, but giving myself some time to wake up first. And what I have noticed, which is super interesting, I am not making as good of choices because I need a breakfast. I need a high protein. I need that. And when I have that, I'm do better. Now, I don't have to eat till 7 o'clock at night. I mean, so I can stop a little bit earlier. I don't feel hungry. But for me personally, waiting until 11 does not work well for me. And how did I learn that? I experimented. That's all I did. I tried it out for a week and I'm like, okay, what's been different? Oh, like I've noticed that I've been making different choices. And it's not necessarily I'm starving, right? It's just I'm craving. Like I have these weird things that normally I don't have. Just getting it's sometimes, but also I'm just getting curious. Like, why do I do that? Why? And so, this end of this week, I started back on, okay, let me go back to having my high protein breakfast and not even making good choices again. And it's not like it takes rocket science but I'm so curious with the 6 types, which you said activator and connector. I'm always interested in learning. So what are the other 4? Just because I'm curious.
Sure. So there's 6 types. And again, this is all based on the predominant derm layer that develops in the womb.
Okay.
So the activator, again, your predominant hormones there, adrenaline and testosterone. We're very competitive. We're going to be your shorter if you look at how I'm built, right? You're shorter, muscular people. We're very competitive because of the testosterone, the adrenaline. So we are going to populate the CrossFit gyms.
Okay, love it.
And then the connectors, shorter femurs due to more testosterone exposure in the womb, a little bit longer torso, or more. I'm like the perfect hourglass figure, natural athletes, very agile, speed, agility. And then you have and that's the true mesomorph. If you look at ectomorph, mesomorph, and endomorph. And then you have over the next way, you have a true endomorph, which we call the guardian. And everybody knows the guardians, okay? These are going to be your bigger people. They're big boned. They're going to have more muscle, more body fat. If you think of like the power lifters, strongman competition. But what we really think about with these people is they're the big teddy bears. And we all know them, right? Whether they're family or work, they take care of everybody. Yeah. And they put themselves last because everybody else has to be taken care of first. So not surprising that their predominant hormone is prolactin, which is a nurturing hormone. And this particular group is going to be more prone to things like metabolic syndrome. And I also contract a couple days a week with a thyroid hormone specialist. She's the Thyroid Fixer podcast. It's Amy Horniman. And so I see so many of this health type in here. And most often, well, we will see a lot of insulin resistance, a lot of thyroid, but these people are told, go keto. You need to drop all your carbs. You need to go high protein, high fat, which is when they are in this distressed state, which is exactly opposite of what they should be doing. So it blows their mind because they're like, I'm doing everything. And even the types of exercise, they're very sensitive to these things. That's your endomorph, that's your guardian. Just the most resilient of all the health types. So they're a very strong body. They have to be because they're the ones that are there for everybody. Then you have down at the very bottom, because I'll talk about the ones in between, but the one at the very bottom is what we call the sensor. And this is your true ectomorph. And these are the people, we call them like the bean poles, right? Your skinny people that they have so much trouble putting on lean muscle or building that mass, right? And I actually am going to have a client on my podcast who is a sensor, because people look at these people and go, they're so skinny. They're they don't have any issues. Well, this is the most inefficient digestive tract. So you're going to see, and I see this with my clients, so many gut issues, and they have their central nervous system predominant, very overactive brain, very overactive central nervous system. And everybody thinks food and fitness, the things you need to work on predominantly. No, for this health type, the priority here is actually the mind. We want them calming before. I was looking at you like how you're built. You're super lean. You've got the long. I'm going, oh, I wonder. I think she could be a sensor. She could be a Crusader. You could be in these bottom three.
Yeah.
But they're all about system process. Everything has to make sense. Very logical, right?
Totally.
Because I'm spontaneous. You asked me about a 5-year business plan, and I'm going, I still don't want to do this for 8 years. But you have somebody who's a sensor, they're gonna have all this lined up going, this is what I'm doing. Right?
Well, I am like, people are like, what's your 5-year? I'm like, I don't know. I'm taking one step today. Like, that's my plan for today. I'm taking one step. That's my organization. And don't ask me any further, because then I'll spiral and then I won't do anything. Yep. Won't do that to me.
Too much overload. Yeah, that's me. But you have these other people that are very much planners. But as long as you have a system in place and a process, like if you're a sensor, again, things have to make sense. They have to make sense. They're
very logical,
super autonomous. They're not your connector people. Some can be very personable, but then you have your opposite up at the top, which is the combination of the activator and the guardian. And this is called the connector. So there's the social aspect of the guardian. And by the way, the guardian, the number one priority, again, not food, not fitness, it's social. Because if they don't have their social connection, make sure loved ones are okay, they're never putting themselves as a priority, which takes away from everything. So when we get that flowing really well, it changes the whole aspect for that guardian. So anyway, the connector is part guardian, part activator. So again, they're going to be shorter. They're going to have typically, especially over towards the guardian, a bigger bone structure, over towards the activator, a little bit smaller. But the ability to put on the muscle, they can pretty much work out, usually, typically anytime, made for movement, but they need variety. Do not box them in anywhere. They're your social, but they're like the next shiny new thing. So number one priority for them, again, mind, but for a different reason than the sensor. The sensor needs that calming. The priority with the mind for the connector is bringing in focus. And I can tell you, I have a very strong connector secondary, and I have to have complete quiet. I have to meditate to bring in focus. Otherwise, I'm, if you look at the books on my bookshelf, there's bookmarks in every one of them. I read what I need to and I'm done, unless it's really good. So,
but what's interesting about that is, there's probably a lot of connectors out there that haven't done the mind work yet. And so they just live in constant shiny object mode, and so
it's a chaos mode.
Yeah, but they're just used to it. It's just how they have been. Not that they need to stay there, but it's just interesting. I think your mind can be utilized for different things. But I will say that for me personally, like 10 years ago, if someone would have said meditate, I would be like, what are you guys talking about? Like I'm like laying down thinking about 1,000 other things that I have to do with my children after school. There's no way, but I also, just wasn't ready for it. I think there's also a time and place as we grow and mature and get and so now, when I got reintroduced to it, I was like, oh, there's like 20 different kinds of meditation. And for me, visualization, because it keeps my mind thinking, which is what our mind does, which is fine. It's not that we're supposed to shut off and be completely quiet in meditation. I mean, there are quiet meditations, but for the most part, it can be lots of different things. But when I started to be able to kind of do the visualization part and start to flip my mind and be able to not control, but be able to make my mind do different things, by just having different thoughts and things, I live in a very calm state now. Like before, I was very heightened, especially like from my growing up. My mom was Italian, my dad was Jewish. We were a very loud household. Do not like loud. I do not like loud. Like moving away to college, I realized that, oh my God, like I don't have a tight stomach anymore because my roommate talked, she was happy, fun, and energetic, but it wasn't like a loud fest all the time. And I realized, again, because you don't know when you're growing up, but I realized that environment just put me under stress. That was subconscious stress, but I don't.
Goes right to your gut.
I chose in my adulthood to push that a little bit out. And, I'm not saying like when we have a family gathering, I'm like, shh. But after everybody leaves, I'm like, oh, I need 5 minutes to like, So very interesting. Okay, so we have the connector, which is the combination of the activator and the guardian.
Yep. And then we have that predominant hormone is oxytocin.
For the connector?
Yep. Oxytocin. So intimacy hormone, connection. They love it. And then, so they're going to be the people that literally like connect everybody. When you have a party, the more the merrier, right? I have friends that are connectory now, where I used to be that way. And now I've settled so much into my activator. I'm like, do we really need to have a party that big? Yes. And I'm going, oh God, I just like a more intimate crowd. So it's interesting how we
evolution. Yeah, sure.
Type. And so then you have the Diplomat. This is the biggest population of clients I have, and female, especially female. I only have, I think, one dude that's a Diplomat, but this is like your biggest non-responder to most things. It's a very particular body, and it's part of the guardian and part of the sensor. And so number one priority here, not prolactin, I'm sorry, serotonin is the predominant hormone here, which is comfort, all about comfort. Their number one priority is place, their surroundings. So if you have them in a chaotic environment, a home or a workplace that doesn't feel good, it doesn't invoke that calm, that comfort, it affects them,
triggers them,
digestive wise, right? So I have one that I'm working with. The top two priorities there for this health type, actually, you've got the place number one, and you have, we call it genius, which is work, number two. And I've been working with a client for several months now, and everybody would think, well, why are you not concentrating on food and fitness? Because her number one and two priorities are so out of flow that it was creating the bad decisions around that, even with having a profile saying this is exactly the foods you should be eating in the exact times. So we have been just focusing so much on taking steps to work with home and work with the work that now she's getting these epiphanies going, oh my God, this is making sense. And then third priority for her, is it food? Nope, it's movement. This body absolutely needs movement, move toxins around. And she said, now I'm seeing how movement's so important. So it's all starting to fall in line. And I had,
and you haven't even touched food. And I want to make that known
yep,
because
minimal.
We have been trained, and
all food and fitness.
It's all food and movement and fitness,
yep.
and like hitting the gym hard and doing the restriction and all of that. And that's one of the reason I chose IIN as the school of choice when I was looking to become an integrative health coach is because of their philosophy, which it makes sense, right? There's primary and there's secondary, and your primary foods are as, if not more important than the food on your plate.
Yep.
If you live in chaos and you're eating salad, you're still not healthy.
Doesn't matter.
Right.
That particular, a couple of those health types, hugely.
100%. And
affects the gut so much.
Correct. And again, I think we try to say it's a one-stop shop. You have gut issues, then do X, Y, and Z. But they're not even addressing their home life. They're not addressing subconscious things that have created, like for you, like a lot of things were created in your younger life. Well, for everybody, really. But, you were a certain way at 12, then you lost your mom. That's a huge thing. Okay. So you had a lot of transformative things happen to you that you never worked through. And I think that's for all of these types, because when you're talking and you're talking about all the different things, it always comes back to understanding you.
Understanding that is spot on. And so when someone works with me and learns through their profile all how they're created, it's like they're looking around, they're going, is Big Brother watching me? Because this is so eerie. And they'll even say like, God, I had a feeling that I was off here, or this never felt right. All these experts telling me to do this, and it never felt right. Mm-hmm. This is what did. And we so often, we're matching ourselves to our environment when it needs to be matching the environment to who and what we are. And I had a woman in her 50s, one of the patients I was working with Amy, and she came on to do my program as well. And she said to me the one day, she said, Susan, this is the first time in my life I felt like I have permission to be me. Mm-hmm. And that is profound.
It is profound.
I've had people in their 60s, 70s, even, and I said, why do we not all have this profile? Why do we not all get our DNA done when we're born to see? And I've done DNA for family that had a 1.5-year-old, and to see that they're actually high risk for a very specific genetic condition that can be controlled, that will actually not start, if it starts to express, typically is going to be about their 30s. But to have this information now, to pay attention to that and look at things that can work with that, I mean, this stuff is gold. Why? And people say, well, like even with blood work, well, I don't want to know. Why would you not want to know?
Because then they know.
Then they know.
Then they have to do, well, then they'll feel bad if they don't do something.
When you can take control, and that's the whole thing. In this day and age, look at all the crap that's happened in the last several years, all the crap that's in foods now. Nothing is like it was when we were growing up.
No.
If you are not your best medical advocate, you're going to have problems.
100%.
You know, the more you can work with.
100%.
Even thyroid wise. And that's what I try to help these patients with their thyroid. Some of them will do DNA, because we see there's issues with the medications, and it's like, well, guess what? Genetically, you don't convert T4 to T3. So you may be a good candidate for T3 only, where these other doctors are going, just give them all the Synthroid for everybody. Hey, it's a party.
That's right.
And you're just wrecking these people that can't convert, and they're more fatigued, and it's just a nightmare. Yeah. So it's all just so individual. And then I'll just touch on the last health type, because there is one more, and this is the Crusader. And the Crusader is driven by dopamine. This, if you ever listen to, oh God, why did I just blank on him? I just went and even saw him. The former Navy SEAL. Oh, geez.
Oh,
you know exactly who I'm talking about.
I know, I can visualize him, but I'm terrible with names.
Goggins.
Yeah. Right? Yep. There you go.
You ever listen to Dave Goggins? The dude is Crusader AF, right? And I mean, you can tell if you do this for a living, you know by looking at his body type. But when he's talking, he's saying, you all have to be out there and do this, just push through the pain. He's doing this 100-mile race with bloody stumps of feet, and he's like, nothing's going to stop me. And this is what they do. Their animal they're associated with is a racehorse. They put the blinders on and they go because nothing matters but achieving that goal. Right? And they will die to achieve that goal. Is that dopamine drive. And then once that goal is done, okay, what's the next?
What's the next? Yeah.
On to the next.
So then, so this is very interesting you say that, because I do believe there are all of these types, right? But then with someone like that who can't sit with themselves, right? Who have a hard time getting quiet and really like honing in, I always go to the psychology behind that.
Guess what their priority is?
Another
mind.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you're spot on there, because again, you've got that central nervous system domination from the sensor coming in, but and then the competitive drive and everything from the activator coming in there. But yeah, it's they don't shut off, and so you're going to see so many of it, and it never surprises me. They're your endurance people. They're your triathletes, and they'll tell you, if you ask them, why do you do that? Because it gets me out of my head.
That's my husband's a runner, and he's like, I like to run because I get out of my head. And I'm like, oh no, if I run, I'm like complaining and bitching the whole time. Like, this sucks. I don't like this. I don't want to do this. Like, this is not me. Like, I want to be in my yoga. I want to be
Yeah. And for me, I love doing the sprint runs and stuff, because and especially like in like a mud run or an obstacle race, because then I'm running only to get to do something fun.
Right. See, exactly. Like it
has to be fun for me. So again, you're the different way. So
interesting.
It's all how we view the different things, but you see how the hormones that are predominant, how they drive us. They drive us in relationships. I date a lot of Crusaders. They like my energy, but they're very future focused, and I'm very in the moment. And so a lot of times it's a clash. I'm dating one right now, but it's working. Like, we get it. And
as long as you can, I think, recognize and love that thing about the other person and know that that's who they are, and you're not trying to make them fit into a different box that works for you per se.
Yes.
Again, it's all about knowledge, education, knowing yourself as well as you can, and knowing how another person's going to respond to you. Also, because yes, you can be outward, you could be all of the things, but if you're in a room of people that aren't like that, I'm not saying you could need to fit in and act like somebody else, but you can dial it back a tad, like you can
adapt a little bit,
adapt that flexibility, like
not
being
flexible of yourself or not being you.
Exactly.
I'm not going to be a bull in the china shop with everybody. I know when and who I can dial it back with, but when I'm truly myself, I need to be able to express.
Absolutely.
So and again, it comes down to, like, are we fitting ourselves into these other environments all the time? Or are we predominantly fitting the environment to be us? And when you say it, like, it's about knowing yourself, most people, because they've been conditioned through life, through family, church, school, whatever it might be, relationships, they really don't know who the hell they are anymore and how they really are created. And a lot of us turn down these things that can come across as weakness, quote weakness, or something undesirable to other people, like directness, or needing more aloof, people thinking you're aloof when you just need more time away from people to recharge, where others need to be around people to recharge, so they're looked at as needy. They're not. This is just how we're created. And
and I want to say something about the recharging, because I know several people very close to me that have that social battery, right? And everybody has a different way of being. And so I had to, one of them is my daughter, and I'm like, it's okay. It's not fear of missing out. Okay. You got to change that mindset. Like, if you continue to go at this pace, you're just burning yourself out. And so knowing that you need to recharge, which at a very young age, knowing that is an incredible gift. Give that gift to yourself. Respect yourself enough to put those boundaries for yourself in place. And if you feel like going out all the time, go, and if you don't, be okay to say no. And again, when you're in that age bracket of the mid, it's hard,
Oh, it's hard because everybody's doing things and
Everybody's doing things. You don't want to miss out. You don't want to whatever, but you're not showing up as your best version when you're not really pouring into yourself. And I do think when you get to the end 40s, 50s, this all starts to come back up. So whatever you did not do to, hone in on yourself, learn about yourself, things you've blocked out, things you've suppressed, it's coming back. It's coming up in this
100%.
age. And that's why I'm so passionate about having people on my podcast that can shed light on different things so people can make choices for wherever they're at, because their journey looks very different, for where they are.
Yeah, we can't compare. We can't be
No.
comparing our journey. And that, I think, sends people into a downward spiral because they're comparing. It would be me comparing my journey to yours.
Right.
It's going to be
Very
completely different. We might have some similarities along the way. We've
Sure.
gone to the same school. We've had these awakenings, right? But the minute you start comparing your journey to somebody else's, you're going down a bad rabbit hole. You just have to embrace yours and know that you're always exactly where you're meant to be on this journey at this specific time.
But that is not a message that is common knowledge.
No.
Especially kids that are in school. It's like, no, you have to do all of these crazy things to even get into college. And then once you get into college, you need to know already what you're going to do, because you got to get that degree. And then once you get that degree, and I'm like, I said to my kids, I know that's the norm, but we're not normal. And so let's define that.
What's normal?
It's what everybody says you have to do,
exactly.
And so I'm like, we're taking that away. I want you guys to go to college to grow up. I want you to go to college to try out classes to see, and maybe you're going to go one direction and then decide that's not my direction. Or maybe you'll start that direction, you'll take a class and it'll open up a whole new world. We're not boxing ourselves in, because in order to be the happiest version of yourself, for me, for them, is you need to do what lights you up. You need to do what you're passionate about. God gave you certain gifts for a reason. And maybe we don't know how it's all going to marry up, but as scary as it is, we have to be courageous enough to take a step in the unknown that might not feel like what everybody else is doing.
Exactly.
So, and I think, for anybody listening who has kids that are in this college, stage, or even like stepping out of college into like the real world, 90% of the time, they're not going to end up in the same field. Or if they do, they're still not going to end up where they start, and so give them permission, start talking about, you have permission, you have the wherewithal to grow as a human and not fit into everybody else's boxes. And I think, but it's hard because it's not what the conditioning has been. And the last thing, this is all about DNA that we're talking about, but there's genetics and then there's epigenetics, and genes are expressed and turned on and off by the epigenetics. And so can you just I know we're way over and whatever, but this is such a good conversation. Can you just tell people in a very quick, what is epigenetics and how does that actually turn on and off the gene?
Yeah, super simple. Epigenetics is how your lifestyle and environment, I can't talk, affect how your genes express. So we have our DNA from mom and dad. When you get those genetics, so like I said, I've tested a 1.5-year-old. I could test that kid in their 60s. That DNA isn't going to change.
It's right.
But
it's
the
your
expression of it will be changing. And that's where lifestyle and environment come in to affect that genetic expression. So the choices we make, the environment with which we surround ourselves, all of that is the big factor that works with that. So I've heard different analogies used where your DNA is the hardware and your epigenetics is the software that programs what that hardware does. I've heard it as the DNA is the gun, epigenetics is the trigger that you pull, right? And so the main things I want people to understand here is you are not your genes.
Correct.
You have control up to about 95% of what your DNA does. So I know most of you out there have heard the story with Chris Hemsworth, who has a genetic SNP called an ApoE4. This is your high risk for Alzheimer's. The 4-4 is the highest risk. And then there's a 3-4 and a 2-4. And he's like, I'm not doing acting anymore. I need to spend time with my family because I'm going to get Alzheimer's. Okay, dude, you're fit. Are you doing the right things? Because you have the ability to work with this. I am a 3-4. When I saw that, I know that when you have that increased risk, first of all, saturated fats, huge enemy. and I was doing strict paleo. I was eating for like 12 years, spoonfuls of coconut oil every day, like it's super saturated fat, eating all the fatty meats 4 or 5 times a week, like all of this. Stop that. Alcohol is absolutely a poison. So I told you I'd been drinking since the age of 14, which is why I brought that up. Otherwise I wouldn't have. So in 2019, when I saw my DNA, I quit cold turkey. I'm like, there's no Argentinian Malbec that tastes as good as having my memory later in life. So we get that. And we know sugar. There's a lot of talk out there about Alzheimer's being type 3 diabetes. And so I eat a low glycemic diet, and then take very specific supplements of fish oil. And so and regular exercise. Mm-hmm. Exercise for all you people that are like, I feel too lazy, I don't want to go work out. Even with a genetic SNP called FTO, which is a hugely impactful obesity gene, that is controlled 80% with exercise.
80%. And it doesn't have to be something that's torture. It doesn't have to be something that is a punishment.
Wants to have exercises that are actually ideal for them. I'm like agility. You look at like a Diplomat, they're not made for high intensity training all the time. They need a lot more recovery. So we're all, again, different. Find what you'll see what feels right.
I was just about to say that everything is an experiment. Yeah. But if you work out and then you're tired for 2 days, check what you're doing and try something different.
Or the timing.
Yeah.
Crucial. If you have someone, the Guardian, the Diplomat, training in the mornings is actually more detrimental to them than doing nothing. Training early in the morning. And these are the people, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., the alarm's going off, and they're like, why am I getting fatter? Like, why am I? And they tank in the morning where they should be having energy, their peak energy in the afternoon. Here I was working out at night. Now I'm morning to afternoon. I know I don't do anything at night because I should actually be, my body's coming down from having been on like an adrenaline rush all day. So it's the timing too. Switch it up. It is not like, here's again, another generic thing of everybody just get up in the morning, get it done, get everything done. No, you have your Guardians, Diplos, some connectors, need that slow start to the morning. Mm-hmm. That's where they're ideal.
Well, I don't know what sensors are, but I feel like that's kind of me. But I'm not someone who's getting up at 6 a.m. to go to the gym. I'm just not, because I would not show up in my best version, because I need some time in the morning. I am a slower morning person, but I get more out of my quiet time in the morning. And then I'm ready to get to the gym or work out or do yoga or whatever.
Yeah.
It works for me because I've tried a bunch of things. I worked out, not at 6 a.m. because I'm just not a morning person, but I've worked out at the 8:30s and I used to do CrossFit also. And
so not for you.
Right. It was fun because of the social aspect.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was really good for me to push myself to do crazy things that I normally wouldn't do to see that I could do it. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I'm good without it. It's not my, go-to. I did take stuff from it. So I think, again, every situation has brought me something that I've taken with me on my journey, but not my go-to. I would never, So but how did I get there? I didn't get the testing done quite yet, but I just experimented. And I think I got out of the mindset of it's this way or no way. It's this way or no way. And it's like, no, I get to choose. And with the eating, it's like your body is going to tell you if something works for you or not, whether it's through gaining weight or it's not feeling your best or it's getting bad labs or, there are tons of things that can give you signals, but it's like, what do you do with that?
You have to pay attention to them.
Yeah. You have to get intentional with getting the awareness. Absolutely. 100%. Well,
that's what I tell people is if you get anything out of this program, you will get awareness around what your body's doing, because I'll hear people, I went through a DNA report yesterday and I said, how do you do with dairy? Well, when I eat this, I get gassy and bloated. And I'm, all right, well, you're actually high risk for lactose intolerance and your body's been telling you this, but you keep doing it over and over. People pay attention to these awarenesses, right? Even though you like it, you're creating inflammation. You're creating more issues just because you like the taste of something. Find something else that gives you that same hit that your body's going to feel better with.
To me, this is, and I know this is like very extreme, but it's like, if you know something food wise is not a match for you. Like your body clearly tells you, right? But you keep doing it. To me, I relate that to if you shot up cocaine and then you had a bad reaction, would you go shoot it up again? Maybe you would. I mean, I don't know, but like, what does it take? Like, respect yourself enough to listen to your body and stop disrespecting it, because that's ultimately, for me, what I feel like happens is we just get in the cycle like, oh, it doesn't matter, oh, well, I have gas, or oh, well, my stomach's 82 feet out, extended, distended or whatever. And I used to call it a food baby because I had that for a while. It's like they're like, this is insane, like I ate that and this is what happens.
Yeah.
But just dialing into that and recognizing. But also, I will say, if you're somebody who's eaten, let's say, dairy for your whole life and it's really not a match for you, you've just accepted these effects as something normal that just happens to you. And I just had an experience where my daughter was diagnosed with, she couldn't have it. She had an allergic thing. So I was like, well, I'm not going to make her, she was small, I'm not going to make her do it alone. Right. So I did it with her. So for a full year, we just did other things and whatever. And then, but I never thought anything was wrong with me. So then one day, I don't know, it was like a year later, I had an ice cream and I was like sick as, I was like, holy, you know what? I was like, not for me.
Yeah.
And still to this day, can I have a little ice cream? Yeah. Guess what? It's getting a stomach ache.
But you know that this is where it's going to take you, and you make your decision based on that. And some days you might be willing for that. With me, it's histamine. I'll say, okay, if I have this tomato and this salad, I know I'm probably not going to feel as great. Do I have anything going tomorrow? Yep. I have a hike at 10,000 feet. It's not worth it today. Right. Like, so because I'm going to be up all night, I'll be itchy or I won't sleep. And so when you get tuned in, you have this awareness around your body, you know what things do, you know what drives you, go for your priorities, put it all together, you will make better decisions.
Exactly. That helps you make better decisions.
Every podcast, this expert said this on this podcast. Okay, well, I don't care what that expert says. You are you. And they're not taking.
Now, if it sounds interesting and you're curious about it,
then try something. Right. And you think that, oh my gosh, that maybe that's the one thing I haven't tried, something like that. But if you're doing it and you're still not feeling better,
right,
then it's okay to move on. Just because an expert says that this is
100%.
What works for everybody, or science says, okay, but they're not taking you as an individual into
consideration. Yeah, absolutely. Well, everyone, I know that, if you're not walking away with something new today, I'm not sure how that, maybe you're not listening. I'm going to drop all of Susan's information into the show notes, where you can reach her, where you can find her. You can check out her program, follow her on social media, whatever, just to get in her world and start to be educated and start learning. I think that's the first and most important thing, is just to start having some awareness around this conversation and the control and empowerment that we do have to change things up. Just really quick before we wrap up, what are 2 non-negotiables you've created, now where you are in your life, that helps you to have, your most healthy day every day?
Number 1, which I never thought would be, but sleep.
Sleep.
Right. That's where our ultimate recovery. We're a tracker. If you wear a tracker and see, because people think they sleep well. I used to think I slept well. You look at how you do with your sleep cycles. So sleep is absolutely crucial. I have to get a good quality night's sleep or I'm wrecked. And my second is actually my food and movement together. I have to have movement daily, and I have to fuel that properly. And I know how I want to feel. I want to be able to perform and do what I want when I want. So I'm not one of those that everything in moderation. I stick really true to the things that work for me 99% of the time, because there is nothing in this world that tastes as good as feeling good does.
Absolutely. 100% agree.
They're my non-negotiables. Movement, sleep, and food. They all go together for me.
Love it.
God, there's so many non-negotiables anymore.
But that's great.
Meditation, my night meditation. So it's hard to narrow it down. There's so many that go in there. Yeah. But
I love it.
Yeah. It used to be some other things. And now it's like it evolves as you evolve and see what the most important things are for you.
Oh, absolutely. And I love that because it's not like you woke up with those 3 non-negotiables 10 years ago. It's been an evolution. So I think that's great. And I think, again, giving ourselves permission to shift those non-negotiables as we learn about ourselves and really start respecting the choices we make for ourselves, those are going to shift. And then you're going to grow in those non-negotiables because they become habits, because they make you feel your best. And that's what the whole 1% shift method is all about. It's about finding the little shifts we can build upon to create those sustainable habits, to create the lifestyle. Without overwhelm, because it really shouldn't be overwhelming. It should be exciting.
It is. It's take that first step.
Yeah.
Take that first step.
Absolutely.
And you don't
100%.
have to do it quickly, right? Just take it at your pace. Some of us are really quick and others are like snail's pace, and that's okay. That's where they are.
Absolutely. 100%.
So you have to meet people where they are, meet yourself where you are, and find peace. This one last tip I'm going to leave here is find peace with where you are. You don't have to say, okay, well, I have to find peace, but I'm not happy here. Find that peace and contentment with, this is where I am. It doesn't mean I'm staying here, but I'm where I'm supposed to be on my journey, and I'm okay. And when you create that peace with yourself there, it makes that journey more enjoyable. Even with the struggle part, you realize that you're supposed to be here for this reason. Mm-hmm. And it all starts to come together and you'll blossom. Take that pressure off yourself that everything has to be perfect at every time.
Yes, 100% agree with all that. Check, 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 check. Love it. All right. For everybody listening, thank you so much for tuning in today. And I can't wait to hear what your 1% shift is for the week. Make sure that you check out the show notes, and I will talk to y'all next week. Have a great rest of your week. Hey, y'all. I hope that you enjoyed that episode. So much good new information, I feel like. Number one of the takeaways is embrace our individuality in health. Generic health advice, as we all know, doesn't typically work for everybody. So understanding our unique biochemistry can really help us tailor a plan that suits our specific needs. That's that bioindividuality that we're always talking about. Number two, the role of DNA and genetics. Your DNA and your lifestyle choices significantly impact your health. Learning about your genetic makeup and then optimizing your gene expression can lead to better health outcomes. So remember, your DNA is something that you were born with, but your epigenetics is something that you have the power by lifestyle choice to create what turns on and optimizes your gene expression or what turns them off. So remember, all the things that you're doing in your life contribute to that. Number three, personalized wellness approaches. Again, talking about us being an individual human, tailoring your lifestyle and your diet based on your hormonal type and your body needs can lead to significant improvement in your health. And that can be your energy level, your weight, just how you feel in general, your ability to really understand like why you might be somebody who loves to hit it hard in the gym or why you might be somebody who prefers to be in nature. I think that's a pretty cool thing that we can all investigate. And of course, lastly, self-acceptance and growth. Prioritizing that self-care, I cannot say that enough. Setting those healthy boundaries for yourself and staying true to yourself. Making sure that you embrace your journey and focus on continued exploration, getting curious, growing, especially in this midlife chapter. We're finally getting some time and space to look at ourselves, pour into ourselves, recognize that we're a completely different human than we were prior to kids, and just really embracing that and finding who we are again and really enjoying this time. So I hope that you guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much always for tuning in, for pouring into yourself, for allowing me to be on your journey with you. It just truly means a lot to me. So have a great rest of your week. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you for tuning in to another episode on healthy lifestyle habits for midlife mamas. I hope you found a 1% shift this week to move you forward on your wellness journey. Remember, small changes add up to big transformations. I want to hear what resonated with you. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review and rate the show. Your feedback is truly the only way that I know that you're taking away 1% shifts, adding value to your journey. It is also a way for others to find the podcast. My dream is to empower others to create health and healing. And so I would love for this show to spread wide and far. To stay connected, please check out my Instagram and Facebook pages at Live Life Balanced with Robin. Join my newsletter and grab some freebies at livelifebalancedwithrobin.com. And if you're looking to work one-on-one with a health coach, feel free to book a discovery call on my website as well. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your day. It truly means a lot that you are allowing me on your wellness journey with you. Until next time, find peace, love, and light by breathing, being present, and allowing for all possibilities to happen. Have a great day.